Okay, so wonderful to see you all. Massive, you're like the tube, isn't it? Come to the London Buddhist Centre for Peace and Quiet. Anyway, yeah, really nice to see you all. And I think there are people next door. If there are, shout out now. I really love doing that. And we could have a shout out for all the people online, but we haven't got the technology for that yet. But anyway, welcome to everybody online. Thomas says, hello, Mom, by the way. There he is. Any other requests? Aunties, uncles, lovers, etc. Okay, so let's start with just a short meditation just to settle in, make ourselves comfortable as far as that's possible. So as soon as you're ready, closing your eyes. And as soon as you close your eyes, engaging with your body, with how your body feels. And your body will feel either comfortable or uncomfortable, or often nothing very much. And that's fine, just as far as you can tune in to the sensations of your body, see if you can just open up to those sensations. And the simplest thing to do is to just notice the weight of your body on the cushions of the chair. Very, very simple. You just tune into that sense of support. And as soon as you do that, even without making a conscious effort, your body will start to relax. So you can feel your weight dropping through the chair or the cushions. And you can feel your feet on the floor. Again, see if you can notice the actual sensations of your feet, not the idea of them, not a mental picture of them, but the actual sensations of your feet on the ground, your backside on the chair or the cushions. And you can just imagine that as you sit here, more and more of your weight is dropping down through the cushions, through the floor, into the ground beneath you. So your whole body is calming down, settling down. And again, bring your attention into your feet on the floor. Really see if you can feel the toes, the heel, the instep. If you're sitting on a chair, or the back of your feet if you're sitting on the floor. Really feel the weight of your body dropping down through the cushions or the chair. Really feeling the support of the cushions or the chair. And then when you're ready, opening your eyes. And just sit comfortably for now. We'll meditate again in a minute. So sit comfortably as you can. I forgot to tell you, my name is Maitreya Bandhu. That is my name. I'll be teaching today and the next two of these Saturday mornings on the meditation challenge, and do try and come along to each of them if you can. Yeah, book out your Saturday mornings. I mean that in the nicest possible way. What often happens on these challenges, the first few days it's packed. By the end, already, it's not as packed. Yeah. So let's see if we can all. I'll come. Why don't we all just come? Yeah. That'd be good. Okay, so what I'm going to do for these 3 weeks is focus on 4 lines of a very ancient Buddhist text called the Ratnaguna Samchayagatha. It's a perfection of wisdom text, yeah, and we're going to focus on what's called the preliminary admonition. It sounds a bit posh, but I'll make all that clear. Yeah, and each week I want to focus on different elements of this preliminary admonition. Yeah, you didn't expect that, did you? Thought I was going to do some gags. The first thing to say is this question of the perfection of wisdom. Yeah. So the Ratnaguna Samchayagatha, along with things like the Diamond Sutra, are perfection of wisdom sutras. In other words, they're concerned with how things really are, the real nature of things, the perfection of wisdom. Yeah. So everything in Buddhism, everything that's truly Buddhist, and there's lots that goes by the name of Buddhism that isn't Buddhist, isn't really Buddhism, but anything that's truly Buddhist is either preparing you for the perfection of wisdom, laying the ground for the perfection of wisdom, helping you to move towards the perfection of wisdom, albeit if you can have smaller steps and baby steps sometimes, but that it's either doing that, moving you towards the perfection of wisdom, or it's an expression of the perfection of wisdom. Yeah? That is the whole of Buddhism in a nutshell. Yeah, you're either trying to create the conditions in which the perfection of wisdom can arise, or you're trying to communicate that to others for the welfare of the world. Yeah, because that it's only by the perfection of wisdom arising can we fully be a force of good for the world. Until then, our own egotism is mixed in with our attempts to help other people and our attempts to be valuable almost. It's only really when the perfection of wisdom arises, which only arises in the absence of egotism, can only ever arise in the absence of egotism. Only then can you be fully a force of good for the world. And that's what the Buddhist tradition is. Yeah, you're either practicing to develop the perfection of wisdom, creating the conditions for it, or you're expressing the perfection of wisdom. I'm doing the first, and I bet you are as well. If you're not, you should take over from me now. So, very briefly, the Buddhist kind of the Buddhist sort of vision of meditation is samadhi prajna, yeah, which is you can translate as meditation and wisdom. Prajna is a better word than wisdom, because wisdom, when I say the perfection of wisdom, it sounds it could sound primarily intellectual or cognitive at least, and probably metaphysically difficult. And some particularly later Buddhist teachings are, as it were, metaphysically difficult, but they're really a poetic metaphysics. What you're trying to gain is a direct insight, a direct experience of how things really are. Yeah. So the tradition of Buddhist meditation is that you need, for prajna, you need samadhi. Samadhi is usually translated as meditation, but it means meditation proper. It means suprapersonal states of mind, which are characterized by one-pointedness, often bliss. They're often very, very pleasurable. There's a very strong sense of psychic unification, where body, intuitions, mind, emotions, thinking all run together in a new unity. In a way, that's the main thing about samadhi, is this kind of psychophysical unification, so that body and mind, thinking and feeling, intuiting, and so on, they're all part of run together in a new unity, and that new unity is experienced as deeply pleasurable and actually deeply sort of natural. When you have a touch of samadhi, and people can have touches of samadhi right from their first class in meditation, it feels like when you've touched samadhi, it feels like that's who I really am. It doesn't feel like you've learnt some groovy technique and have done some sort of specialised thing with a part of your brain. It feels more like, it's like a relief, a huge relief, to finally feel like that's kind of who I am and even what I'm meant to be. It feels very natural and intrinsic, non-conceptual in a kind of heady sense, but also not sort of deeper than emotion in the sort of in the volatile sense. You just feel your whole being drawn together in a new unity that feels like a relief, not just to your mind but also to your heart and even to your body. It feels like this is what my human nature wanted to be, and I got lost from it. That's what samadhi is. Yeah? And samadhi is the absolutely crucial basis for prajna, perfection of wisdom. Can't say so much about prajna because it goes beyond words. It goes beyond prajna itself is a wisdom, as Bhante Sangharakshita, our founder, calls it, a wisdom beyond words. So it's beyond cognition. There's no way of thinking about prajna. It's supra-personal. It feels very intimate and direct, but it feels universal at the same time. It's not one of the physical senses. It goes beyond the physical senses and the rational mind. There's no way of thinking your way to it. And even though it goes beyond the physical senses and the rational mind, it is nevertheless direct. And Buddhism emphasizes this again and again. It's direct, it's unmediated. You're not having to ponder over it. That's why wisdom is a problematic word, because we've got all these weird Westernized and then Eastern visions. And the Westernized view of wisdom is sort of somebody with a pipe, with all these books around them with a cravat on. Buddhist wisdom is direct. It's unmediated through words and concepts. It's embodied. It's imaginative and so on. And you can have flashes of it, and then in Buddhahood itself, it becomes who you are. Yeah, you become in Buddhahood. That's why we have the statue of the Buddha here. Is that when you become wise, you become wisdom personified, literally, and that's very mysterious. And perhaps I'll just draw a curtain across that for now. Yeah. Anyway, that's what Buddhism is. It's an approach to perfection of wisdom. All meditation is a way of softening the mind so that wisdom can appear within your mind. Yeah. Although within your mind is a bit dubious. It just arises. You can't really say that wisdom arises from within or from without. It goes beyond that fundamental bifurcation of the world into subject and object. And it's always expressed, wisdom is always expressed, to whatever degree you have it or don't have it, it's always expressed as compassion. People's experience of someone with wisdom is that they are compassionate, not sort of brainy and clever clogsy, nothing like that. Okay, so this is a sutra that's concerned with the perfection of wisdom. Yeah, it's concerned with trying to show you what wisdom is like, but we're not ready for that yet. So we're just going to look at the preliminary admonition. So it's an important title piece for this. It's only 4 lines. It's an admonition. So it's saying that the word admonition is saying, just be careful. Hang on. Never mind. Don't get into reading about wisdom. You need to do this. Yeah, it's an admonition. It's a kind of direction to you, not to get into, arcane metaphysics, but to do this. To be interested in wisdom, you need to do this. Yeah. So I'll read it, and then we'll just today do the first line. Sometimes I don't get past the second word, and then the next weeks we'll carry on through it. So preliminary admonition. Call forth as much as you can of love, of respect, and of faith. Remove the obstructing defilements and clear away all your taints. Listen to the perfect wisdom of the gentle Buddhas, taught for the weal of the world, for heroic beings intended. Yeah. So that's our text for these 3 weeks. So call forth as much as you can of love, of respect, and of faith. So that's very striking, isn't it? That here we have, a great sutra about the nature of wisdom, and it starts to get very, very metaphysical after various introductory remarks. And the first thing it says is not, make sure have you studied logic, have you studied philosophy, etc. It says, call forth as much as you can of love. Yeah? That's the first thing it says. That's an absolute crucial. You can't skip over that. It can be tempting to, but you can't skip over that. I tried to, and it was not a success. So you don't. One of the benefits of being old is the young can learn from your mistakes. So just don't try it. Yeah. There you are. Boom! I saved you years of misplaced practice. You were all about to go off, but no. Now that you've learnt the lessons from the old. So call forth as much as you can of love. So one of the things to notice there, and this is a bit of a theme that we'll be coming to for the 3 weeks, is it says call forth. It doesn't say develop. It would be more natural to say develop everything you can of love, respect and of faith. Yeah, but it says call forth. So the assumption there is that love is already there. Yeah, all you need to do is call forth love. Yeah, you don't need to develop it. You don't need to do affirmations or something. You just call forth as much as you can of love. Yeah. So I want to say a tiny bit about that. Then we'll do a bit of meditation. Then we have the obligatory tea break, which will be like an army manoeuvre, and there will be a medal for those of you who managed to get a cup of tea. And then I want to say a little bit, if I can, about respect and faith, because in fact I was going to just talk about that, but I've changed my mind as I'm talking, because it is so important, this call forth as much as you can of love. So there's lots that could be said about it. You've all hopefully will learn the Metta Bhavana if you haven't yet and you are practicing it. But the main thing I want to say just now is that from my experience of myself and from my experience of others, a lot of people find this matter of calling forth love very difficult, or at least not difficult, but at least complicated. Yeah. I think traditional Buddhism would have been taught in a traditional animistic world where you lived in a close-knit community in contact with nature. They say, don't they, famously, that it takes a village to raise a child. So, if your parents told you off about something, it would be fine because you used to go next door and they'd think you were marvellous, and if they didn't think you were marvellous, you'd go next door the other way and they'd think you were marvellous, and there'd be, all these children of your own age in the street that you just go and play with, that you just grew up with and were with all the time. We couldn't be further removed from that world. We're traditionally, lots of modern thinkers now are calling us deracinated, which is a posh word to have before 11 a.m. But it means uprooted, uprooted from place, uprooted from a community of people, and uprooted from tradition. Yeah, we're deracinated, and that's making us very unhealthy. Gen Z are the young people at the moment. They're the most unhealthy people on record. They have the most mental health issues. They've got the most fear, the most depression, and so on. Our world, our modern world, is making us very unhealthy. It's a great matter because we can't possibly go back to a pre-modern world of that communal life. We couldn't do that if we wanted to. And my joke is always, when you go to the dentist, you definitely don't want to go back to a pre-modern world. If they presented you with some sheep dung, you'd be a bit worried. You want all the technology of modernity, don't you? In a way, that's what we're trying to do here at the London Buddhist Centre, is create a new community, one that goes beyond national identity, race, sexuality, gender, and so on. We're trying to create a new kind of community that you can grow up in. So because of our modern situation, we come to Buddhism very, very uneven. I keep meeting people who are very, very intellectual, but emotionally, frankly, stupid. I mean that in a nice way, in a kind of Buddhist-y way. But I also meet people who are emotionally volatile and haven't got two thoughts to rub together, They feel things. A friend of mine, my joke about her, bless her, is that she's very enthusiastic. I'm just not sure what about. You can get people who are very emotional, but they don't think, et cetera, et cetera. Or you get people who are, wonderfully capable of, coding or something, but you can barely order a coffee. We come to Buddhism, modern people come to Buddhism not in the traditional way where they were brought up in a village, probably. Just their background assumption is, I am loved. Yeah, that would be their background assumption. And for many people, it is not all, because you can nostalgize the past, but your background assumption is that I am loved and I'm in this incredible, secure world. Yeah, I wouldn't have heard of what's happening in Venezuela. I wouldn't have heard of anything outside the village, with its traditions and rounds and so on. It's interesting that apparently mammals are as attached to their nest as they are to their mother. Yeah, so place is extremely important for creatures. If you go to the Pavilion Cafe, I shouldn't go online, so I'm going to go meditate. If you go to the Pavilion Cafe, there are these coots, and they go and stand on this particular bit of wood in front of the cafe, and that's because that's where their nest used to be. You literally can go to them, and they stand on this bit of wood, and you can feel them thinking, I kind of feel good here. This is where I need to be, just now. When they've had that sort of nervy moment, they just go back to this piece of wood. The nest isn't there at all, and then they build it again. But, so we're as attached to human beings, really, are deeply place-based. It's just that we think we don't need to be, and that's making us more and more deracinated, and that's one of the causes for this sort of crisis in mental health and so on. So we need to quite consciously, I think, many people, not everybody, but many people need to quite consciously re-evoke a sense of being loved, and being loved in this sort of background sense, like when you're loved as a child, you don't then cling to your parents or hold your father's hand all the time. What you do is you just adventure. You can see children that are loved, they just got all this energy and they just adventure. Sanghaji's boys, they just come and trash my community, they go straight through it. It's great fun. They can do it in seconds. They pull all the cushions off the sofa, they build dens, I'm just trying to get a cup of tea. That's what children that are loved do, they adventure. When we can't adventure, when we can't take risks, it shows that we don't feel loved somehow. Yeah. So what we need to do is quite consciously either remember being loved or imagine that you are. Yeah, and many people, I think, need to do this because I've always struggled with feelings of self-esteem all my life, pretty much less so now. But I was very, very unhappy as a child. I was loved, I just didn't feel it, and my parents were working all the time. Etc. I won't go on about that. Anyway, I was a very unhappy child. And one of the consequences of that is this sense of not feeling very secure, which basically just means not very loved. Like if you see a mother with a child, if the child gets upset and the mother just picks it up and just says, oh, you don't need to worry about that. And they basically say, don't worry, it's fine, don't worry. And they can regulate themselves. If you run to your mother and she gets angry with you for being upset, or she's too busy to talk to you because she's got a high-flying career in the contemporary scene, or she's just irritable or anxious because you're upset, it gets more and more difficult to regulate your experience, so you can't relax very easily. You can see it with children. I remember with Alex, I'd just sort of pick her up, and she'd be, they can cry for... I remember carrying her once, and I thought, someone will ring Childline. She was weeping in my arms. And then she grabbed my glasses and said, I don't like your glasses. And I thought, I'm not very keen on them either. But you really thought this is the end of the world here. And and then I said, just look at that bird. It's a blackbird. She said, it's not a blackbird, it's a pigeon. She's just got the category wrong. Yeah? But what that does, you could see within moments, she was just really relaxed, and looking from my arms, and then before I know, she was just playing again. But if I got worried, or I had told her off for crying, or if etc., or if it had upset me in a certain way, it doesn't help you regulate yourself. So many people need to quite consciously either remember loved figures that people have loved them in their life, or if that's not the case, and some people don't have that, it's very, very difficult to manage that. You need to imagine people like that, or bring to mind any situation where you feel loved. Now, the thing to just say about this before we meditate on it is, because remember we are on the text, call forth as much as you can of love. the thing about that I've been realizing through practicing a little, using this in my own practice, is that one's sense of being loved isn't in the foreground. So if I try to remember, like I feel very loved by my father now. Weirdly, I didn't particularly when I was young, but I do now very much. My relationship with my dad has got better and better since he died. Which sounds more negative than I've meant it to sound. But in my mind, he's a very, very loving presence. But, if I then try to imagine my father hugging me, my father never did that. The best he ever did was shake hands. Just before he died, but, I shook his hand and said, I'll see you later. That's what we did. I couldn't have said I loved him or I hugged him or anything. That would be just embarrass him, But somehow when I bring him to mind, it's a kind of background sense of his presence and his kind of love for me, which is utterly undemonstrative, never spoken, but somehow you pick it up. That he used to call me Peter, Robert, Johnny, Ian, because I'm the youngest of my brothers, because he couldn't remember my name. He'd say, Peter, Robert, Johnny, Ian. But so there was no sense of particularity. So if you look for a foreground experience, you won't find it, and then that will make you think you weren't loved. It's more like a background thing, and I think often in my own experience, it's more to do with place. So all I need to do is remember the kitchen that I grew up in, and the dogs, and my grandmother, and so forth, and even the streets and the small town I come from. The place gives you that sense of, you're looking for that sense of security, of belonging, of love, and therefore of, it's all right. There's nothing to stress about here. Yeah. Okay, let's have a go at that. Yeah. So set yourself up. Those of you at home as well, set yourself up. So you can sit completely still. So we're just going to take this very, very lightly. We're not going to try and do some mega practice. The main thing we're going to do is we're going to first of all, again, make sure that we're embodied, and then just bring to mind loved figures in our life, either in the present or in the past, that we feel beloved by. I don't mean the romantic sense, I just mean in the sense that they think that we're great. Yeah. And often that's when we're a child. And if that doesn't work for you, you can imagine a figure that feels that. So when you're ready, closing your eyes. As soon as you've closed your eyes, just tuning into, opening up to your body sensations. And the simplest way to start that is simply the weight of your body on the chair or the cushion. So really feeling the contact with the cushion of the chair. Again, not as an image, not as a thought, but direct sensation. So you can really feel your weight dropping down into the cushions, into the chair. And you can trust the weight of your body to the cushions or the chair. You can let go. Bring your mind into your feet. Again, really experiencing your feet, not the idea of your feet, not the mental image. And see if you can soften your eyes and your jaw. Just imagine that your body is comfortable, settling down, calming down. And then just bringing to mind, staying in touch with the body, not suddenly getting very heady, but just bringing to mind someone in your life that you feel loved by. And it's like slightly dreaming about them, the place, their presence. Bringing to mind someone who saw something good in you, who was always pleased to see you. And you're not trying to make anything happen. You're not trying to cultivate anything. You're just calling forth that figure. then coming back to the weight of your body on the chair or the cushions. Your feet on the floor. Okay, so we're going to have a little tea break now. Okay, so as people are coming in, why don't we start to meditate? So if you'd like to close your eyes, so we'll start straight away so we can sort of start to settle, yeah. So there'll be people coming in, so that's fine. But when you're ready, closing your eyes. Congratulations for getting a cup of tea. That was your challenge. That's the real meditation challenge. The cup of tea challenge. Anyway, so once again, as soon as you've closed your eyes, bringing your attention into your body, into the weight of your body on the cushions and the chair. Those of you at home, you've probably had your cup of tea, hopefully, so you can do the same. Settle into your chair, your cushions. And the first thing we can do to help ourselves start to sort of unify and go deeper is just relax your face, relax the small muscles around your eyes. As soon as you soften your eyes, your mind starts to quieten down. And see if you can notice if you're furrowing your brow. We often do that habitually without really noticing it. So see if you can smooth out your brow. Smooth out your eyes, soften your eyes, soften your mouth and your jaw. And then just see if you can bring your attention into your shoulders. Just imagine your shoulders letting go. You can't make your shoulders relax, but you can imagine them relaxing. Again with your belly. Just see if you can soften your belly or imagine your belly softening. And the large muscles of your thighs, see if you can relax those muscles. So your whole body is smoothing out, calming down, quietening down. Your eyes are soft. Your brow is soft. You can just let go of your shoulders. And soften your belly. And when you're ready, coming out of the meditation and sitting comfortably. Okay, so there's a lot more I'd like to say about calling forth as much as you can of love, but that we'll have to do for that for now. Just to say, if you haven't signed up for the challenge, do, because when you sign up for the challenge you get a preview of the app that we're building, and that gives you a day-by-day guide to the challenge. So I'm teaching meditation from Monday at 7 a.m, Monday to Friday, so you can, it's really good. Sorry? Is it 7:30? Oh, that's good. Relief. Oh God, that was no wonder I was anxious. It's 7:30. So it's really easy on the app. I've just been Cyril Naga's here, our app hero, along with Sangadon. He showed me the page, and there's a little button that you press, and it just says Zoom. So you didn't even need a link or anything. It's much easier. So I'll teach more during the week. So one of the useful things about teaching these sessions is I can then follow up at least during the first week, and then Johanna Varch will teach the second week. Yeah. So we're trying to cultivate the perfection of wisdom, and we start with calling forth as much as you can of love. Yeah? And a lot of what we're trying to practice in Buddhist meditation from at every stage, not just when you're new to meditation but throughout, is calling forth as much as you can of love. That really is the crucial factor for wisdom. Bhante Sangharakshara, he said that wisdom is like salt in a meal. You don't need very much of it. You need a really beautiful cooked meal, and then a bit of salt brings out the flavour of it. Yeah, that's what prajna is like. But we'll get to that in a bit. I want to go on to the next, something like 4 words. Call forth as much as you can of love, of respect, and of faith. So I want to say a little bit about respect and faith, and then we'll do another meditation. Yeah. So the word respect is sometimes translated as devotion. In fact, I think devotion is probably more accurate translation. Call forth as much as you can of love, devotion, and faith. Yeah. So remember, this is this is an admonition. This is saying this is what you need to do if you want to cultivate the perfection of wisdom. And the perfection of wisdom, from a Buddhist point of view, is the only solution to human suffering. It's the only way out of human suffering. And I don't know about you, but I'm more and more struck by the fact of human suffering, not just internationally and so forth, which is beyond words, but even just the people I meet. Yeah, the great matter of human suffering, and the perfection of wisdom. It's the perfection of wisdom because it's the answer to that great human question. We're born in a world of suffering, and we easily cause suffering for ourselves and other people. We even can cause suffering from ourselves and other people when we try and do good. In fact, quite often that can happen. So to be able to do good, you need to be very, very wise. It's only the perfection of wisdom that is the solution from a Buddhist point of view of suffering. The Buddha represents the answer to the great question of suffering. Why do we suffer? How do I escape suffering? How do we escape suffering at every level, psychological and so on, spiritual, physical, existential suffering even. In fact, the Buddhist vision of suffering goes much beyond our own experience of suffering. Even when we're in a really, really good mood, the Buddha's experience of us would be that we're suffering, because egotism itself is a kind of suffering. It brings with it a kind of tension, a kind of tension will do. So if we're going to move towards wisdom, we need to call forth as much as we can of love, of devotion, let's say, and faith. So I want to say a bit about devotion. So it's interesting that, again, the assumption here in the text is that devotion is something that's already there. It's not saying cultivate devotion, it's not saying practice a devotional ritual like that we perform here at the centre and on our retreats. Vital though those things are, it's not saying, you can imagine another sutra saying, make offerings to all these shrines, bow to the monks, give alms to the monks, etc., etc. That would be quite traditional. But it's saying, call forth as much as you can of love and devotion and of faith. Yeah. So again, the assumption is that you're in a world in which devotion is a given, faith is a given, and all you need to do is call it forth. It's already there. It's there in you, and it's there all around you as a given, not as a self-conscious choice, but as a given. I won't go on about it because I keep talking about it so much, but I went to India last year for the first time on a pilgrimage to Bodh Gaya. And it's the first time in my life I've been a Buddhist in a Buddhist world, particularly at Bodh Gaya, surrounded by Tibetan monks, Thai nuns, Sinhalese monks and so on. The whole place is mad. And I could put my caser on in the hotel and walk to the temple, and nobody gave me a second glance. Even if I stand outside the centre waiting for people to come in my caser, I get some funny looks. It might be me more than the caser. I hadn't thought about that. We're so used to, in the westernised world, and most modern people are so used to taking up religion in a self-conscious, kind of eccentric way. Yeah, it's become a kind of thing that people might choose to be, like people say I'm not religious, I'm more spiritual. I tend to want to say I'm not spiritual, I'm more religious. I'll leave you with that one. But the tendency is to sort of consciously take it up in a highly self-conscious, in a way eccentric way, in a private way. In the modern world, if you do have religious feelings, you keep them to yourself, don't you? And the assumption is that they're not to be seen, and they shouldn't disturb the marketplace. You shouldn't. Nobody should tell. The vicar in the pub is the great symbol of modern religion. That he's just like everybody else. He drinks his pints. He just has this little white thing, just a little indication that there's something going on. Yeah. But religion, to use that word, it was never something you took up. You didn't think, I fancy being religious. It was just a given in the world you were in, that faith and devotion were the world you were in. That it was as simple and straightforward as any other assumption. That we're in a world in which there is more to life. And human beings have experienced this throughout human history until relatively recently for this little bubble of people in the modernised West, which of course is getting bigger. But remember, most of the world still believes in God, for instance. Most of the world is still religious. It's only a few people in the westernised world who think they know better, really. There's a terrible sort of smugness about secularism, where we think we used to be kind of religious and have devotion and faith, but science has shown us we were wrong. Now we know better than that. Nobody gets emotional about a tree anymore or a mound of grass or whatever, because science has showed us we were wrong. So what that means is when you take up Buddhism, if you're not careful, or take up any religious practice, you take it up in a sort of highly self-conscious, eccentric and private way. That, again, undermines this sense that devotion and faith are intrinsic, not extrinsic. And really the place usually that we can remember this dimly is our childhood experience, where one does have something more, very often more like a religious relationship to the natural world, to the phenomena. I remember with Alex, she said to me, "Don't turn off the lights because I see monsters." And she didn't say, "It's as though I see monsters." She was just in that religious world, which if I turn the lights off, there would be monsters. I remember lifting her onto a tree that was sick, and she said, "Bye-bye tree, hope you get better soon." That's our instinct, is to feel that we're in a sacred world, that we're part of something much bigger. Human beings have always felt that this being human is part of something infinitely larger than ourselves, and that infinitely larger presence is animating everything, animating internally my heart. The pre-modern world, people talk. Charles Taylor, a Canadian philosopher, talks about a porous mind, where the assumption would be that your mind was porous, and that gods and spirits, and unfortunately including demons, could just enter your mind and shape your psyche. That was just an assumption. Yeah, we've now decided that science again has proved that to be wrong, which it has not. But there you go. So our childhood kind of suggests to us that very often we felt we were part, especially when we were very young, of something infinitely larger, wonderful, mysterious, something that we could interact with. Like Alex saying, "Goodbye tree, hope you get better soon." That's a natural instinct. You have to learn not to do that. We have to learn secularity, I think. We have to learn our kind of modern or postmodern, sort of slightly cynical, slightly smug attitude. And what it does is it separates us from our deep instincts about the world and about ourselves. It makes us even think weirdly that we know ourselves, as if we're, just a set of tick boxes and so on, which is why we're all worried about uploading ourselves to a computer, because we think it's possible, which of course is ridiculous. So what this sutra is talking to a different world in which devotion and faith are just a given. Just like when I was at Bodh Gaya, one of the wonderful things is just a given. I was in a world for the first time in my Buddhist life. I've been a Buddhist for nearly 40 years, but for the first time in my Buddhist life, I was practicing the Holy Dharma in the context of everybody practicing it. It was just like, that's what you do. You don't decide to do it. You don't think, I'm more spiritual than religious or whatever it is. You just practice, because that's what the world you do, yeah? So I think we need to rediscover our instinctive devotion and faith, yeah? Faith is innate. It's doubt that is acquired. Yeah? We acquire doubt as we go on, and we lose faith. One of the things I've been feeling more strongly as I've got older is that in modernity, we're so dazzled by all the things we have, from iPhones to, whatever it is, intercontinental travel, that we've just forgotten how much we've lost. And one of the many things we've lost is, we've lost a sense of community, for instance, very much, many of us, and we've lost a sense of being part of something infinitely greater, having the devotional sense, to use that word, the faith sense that this being human, and its pains and its hopes and its trials, actually, do you know what? There's something much bigger going on, and that much bigger going on, however you articulate that, however you express that, is real and direct, and you can be in relationship to it. It's not all about you, it's not all about me, it's not all about how I feel, it's not about whether I get anything, something much more important going on. Yeah? And human beings, as I said, have always had that sense. It's the basic religious sense, I think, across all religions, that this being human is part of something infinitely larger. And that infinitely larger is mysterious, beautiful, often loving, can be interacted with, can be propitiated, can be spoken to, and so on. That we're part of a living and sacred cosmos. Yeah? And Buddhism thinks that's Buddhism's assumption as well. It articulates that, I think, in a more useful way, because it has no concept of a personal God or a creator God or anything like that, which is, I think, a dead metaphor now. It articulates it in a more intelligent and useful way, but the assumption is we are living in a world of meaning and value, and I can open up to that. And that meaning and value isn't kind of impersonal like electricity. Tradition, in the West, the assumption has been it's been personal like God. Buddhism saying it's kind of not that either, but there is a real, as it were, something quite difficult. I'm suddenly getting into metaphysics. The traditional practitioner of meditation would have practiced with the assumption that, do you know what, it doesn't matter how my meditation goes that much, because all I need to do is open up to the Buddhas. They're all there, and they all love me. Yeah? Again, it's part of this call forth of much as you can of love. So a traditional assumption would be that, someone practicing very committedly to the Dharma would assume that the Buddha is present, yeah, and that all they need to do is open up to that. It's not to do with whether they're any good as a person, whether they're getting anywhere with their meditation or not. They just assume he's present. That's really why you end up creating a shrine with an image of the Buddha. The metaphor is he is here, and all you need to do, and he's here in the absence of his actual presence, his historical presence, and all you do need to do is just imagine he's here. And we've actually created a room in which he's here. Every shrine room, irrespective of which Buddhist tradition, will have a figure of the Buddha, his presence. Yeah. So, what I want to do is sort of see if we can find a way of practicing with that assumption more. And I think we need to do this. It's interesting, we bow to the shrine at the start, which is a devotional act. Just when you thought you weren't a devotional person, we sneaked one in. It is a devotional act. We do, the traditional assumption was that ran all the way through your meditation. I think what we tend to do, modern people tend to do, even quite committed Buddhists, we bow to the shrine, we chant things, we do rituals. But when we come to working in meditation, we think of it as basically a mind science. That Buddhism is just basically a new kind of secularity where it's a kind of more ancient mind science. There's values in that approach, but it's not true. But yeah, hey, let's not go on about that. There's a value in that approach, but it's very, very limited to think that you're basically trying to, I don't know, do something with your neural networks. It's like awful. I mean, do it if you want to. But it's very impoverished as a vision, and utterly modern and weirdly separate from the body, separate from emotion, separate from community, separate from communication, and so on. So, what we'll do in a bit is we'll practice trying to open up to, because we're calling forth as much as we can of love, devotion and faith. It's a bit tricky because what are we devoted to or have faith in? At the moment I just want to, you could say the Buddha, but I don't want to go there at the moment. What I mostly want to suggest to you is that you try to imagine that there is we're part of something much, much bigger. And then that infinite bigger that we're part of is alive, is sort of conscious, or at least is experienced as having a sort of consciousness like ours. This isn't metaphysics, it's more poetry really. That the world is not dead matter, like little billiard balls knocking against each other, but a living world of meaning and value. And all we need to do is remember that and open up to that. Yeah. So what I've been doing recently in my own meditations is I've been going through the body quite carefully and remembering, this is a bit more of an insight approach, and you can take this approach or not, depending what you want to do, but just remembering that it's not me, it's not mine. The body doesn't belong to me. If I cut my nails, I don't feel like I've lost a bit of myself, etc. And Buddhism explores that kind of metaphysics in great depth, that the body you have isn't your body. You've got it on loan from the elements. You've got the earth element, the solid part of the universe. You've loaned a bit to it to make your body. There's a water element in the universe, water in streams and clouds and so forth, and you're borrowing some of it for your blood and your and lymph and so forth. There's a heat element in the universe, the candles, the heat in the room, and you've borrowed some of that just for now for the heat element of the body. Yeah? And the space element in the world, there's space, and you're taking up a degree of space, but it's all been borrowed, and it'll all have to be given back. That's a fundamental Buddhist reminder of our situation. We've borrowed all these elements from the universe. We actually exchange them all the time. The earth element comes in as food and goes out as poos. The water element comes in as water, goes out as urine and so on, sweat and so on. We're exchanging the elements with the outside all the time. You can't really find out the me that's, the bounded me, the buffered me that sits in the middle of that. We're a place of exchange, yeah? And eventually we'll have to give it all back. We're always giving and taking, as it were, and eventually we'll have to give it all back. Now, the value of this approach for me, especially if you've got a lot of discomfort in your body, is, and especially if you're taken to meditation as a kind of mind science that you can get better at, and because you can get better at it, and you can have more and more deep meditations. But sometimes that idea of I'm doing this to have experiences or to get better at meditation or manage my life better, the danger of all of those kind of approaches, which are valid approaches, but they're utilitarian, aren't they? They're kind of, I'm going to do this sensible thing so I get some good outcomes. That's a natural enough approach for human beings, but it's limited because what happens if you don't get that wow in meditation? What happens if you don't feel like you've got massive more concentration at work? All the things that people go to meditation for. What happens if that doesn't happen? You'll lose faith in meditation. Yeah? So it's good to remember that that's only a kind of way of talking about meditation. A more traditional way is to think, okay, all of this, my body, with the elements of my body, even my mind doesn't belong to me. The thoughts I'm having, they're not my thoughts. I haven't thought deeply. In fact, thinking is a very profound matter. It's really philosophers that think. Usually what we have is not my thoughts. We've just got, I can't think of a less rude word. Anyway, let's go for a Pali word, which is prapuncture. You've just got mental chatter, haven't you, really? Much of which is not even recyclable. It's, it's just rubbish, isn't it? It is, and it's not. And the Buddhist approach to that is not even your rubbish; it's just rubbish that flows through human minds. Flows through your mind, goes into your neighbour's mind. That's all it is. You don't need to take it seriously. You don't need to think it's me. You don't think I can't believe I'm thinking that. What kind of person am I? You just think that doesn't really. That's not really important. You're aware of it. You open up to it. You feel it very directly, but you think it's not me. It's not really who I am. As I said, actually, interestingly, it's when you go deeper in meditation that you start to feel more like this is who I really am. All that chatter, complaining, arguing in your mind, lusting after people in your mind, whatever. I remember that. That's just static. You can just think that's interesting, it's happening, but it's not me. Yeah, and then you can sort of see if you can imaginatively open up to devotion. I don't need to worry about me, in my body, my feelings, my thoughts, which we get hyper obsessed with in our modern life. We've basically we've got rid of the church and we've turned ourselves into a church. We've turned me into our religion. How do I get what I want, avoid what I don't want? How do I optimize my life? I need to stick my tongue out at 5 a.m. in the morning and get some sunlight on my face, and then I need to have a smoothie, then I need to go to the gym, and then I do a plank. Then boom, I go do that meditation. That's working with my mind. So I'm like hot here, and then I'm going to make some money. That's where it's all going. And sex, So meditation is just not really about that. Really, you can do a bit of that. Don't worry about it. But it's not really about that. It's about something much more interesting than any of that. Yeah? So you could, in meditation, just see if you can. We'll take you through your body. Just remind yourself it's not my body. I don't literally own it. I'm going to have to give it back. So I don't need to get into all that. And I can just open up imaginatively that I'm part of something infinitely bigger and gracious and majestic and loving and, like the golden figure of the Buddha, golden, as it were, spiritually golden. And I can just sort of imaginatively open up to that, even imaginatively open up to the Buddha's presence, and that presence is experienced as love. Yeah? And I don't need to improve myself, nothing needs to get better. We're obsessed now with improving ourselves, and it's making us more and more stressed, weirdly. I don't need to get better, I don't need to be good at stuff. I'm just here to sort of feel devotion and faith, that's all that I'm here for. That would be much better, wouldn't it? If by lunchtime we were like, here we were in devotion and faith. Do you know what? That's going to be much better than a bit of mind science. Yeah. Anyway, I've now upset at least a few people, so perhaps it's time to meditate. There are no question and answers. So when you're ready, closing your eyes. Those of you at home, you might want to set yourself up. And once again, starting meditation with a direct sense of your body. The simplest way to start is with the weight of your body on the cushions, on the floor. Just tuning into those direct sensations. So we're not getting lost in fantasy or thought, we're embodied. So really see if you can feel your legs. Again, you're trying to get up close to the direct sensation. You're not trying to think about your legs or picture them. So often what we call awareness is really a mental image. See how much of your legs you can feel, your feet on the floor, your shins, your knees, large muscles of your thighs. So really feeling your legs. Just reminding yourself that the legs are not mine, they're not my possession. I didn't create them. They're not myself, they're not who I am. And that's not to distance yourself from the feelings of your legs. It actually gets you closer to the feelings if you let go of this sense that they somehow belong to me, that they are me. What you experience as sensations. You can really feel your legs. And you just very lightly remind yourself that they're not me. They're not mine. They're not myself. And then feeling the sensations in your arms and your hands. Really opening up to those sensations, investigating them. I didn't create my arms, I didn't I just appeared with them, they're not mine. I don't own them. So any sensations in our arms can just be what they are. Doesn't matter if they're good or bad, comfortable or uncomfortable. And then opening up to the whole body, all its changing sensations. Comfortable or uncomfortable, pleasant or less pleasant, cold or warm. They're all just sensations. They're not me, they're not mine, they're not really who I am. They're sensations. And the thoughts going through my mind, the images and pictures, I don't need to identify with those. They're not my thoughts really. They're not really who I am. So I can just experience all this without trying to grasp it and own it and improve it and have it. And then, in a kind of playful way, opening up to a devotional sense, the kind of sense you had as a child, of being part of something infinitely greater, infinitely mysterious, beautiful, open-ended. Just imagine that you're in touch with that sense. Opening up to devotion and faith. And then coming back to direct sensations of your body, the weight of your body, the warmth of your body. Okay, so that's all we've got time for today. I went into something there a bit more than I'd expected. Anyway. So do join the app, do join the challenge, and then you can join me for meditation on... You can all join me in my bedroom, which is weird. Don't tell everybody that. Apart from the people online now. Join me on 7:30 on Monday. And what I want to do from then for the week is sort of really go back to basics and sort of keep building up. But basically, if you leave today with that sense that we're trying to cultivate the perfection of wisdom, we're either setting the context for that to arise, and that is love, devotion and respect. Yeah? That's the first thing we need to live by, not just think about, not just practice even, but live by love, devotion and respect. Out of that, we'll go on next week. Yeah? So I'll see you online on Monday, and I'll see you next week.